My name is Valerie White Williams, and I would like to welcome you to my channel, Cosmic Splendor. And this is a channel where I get to talk about astrology and spirituality and how to be safe in this world. And today I'm really excited. I'm going back to a celebrity astrology chart. I am going to analyze Prince Nelson and his chart. So let's get into it. So Prince was born June 7th, 1958 at 6:17 p.m. in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So the first thing I like to do when I look at a chart is I like to get a look at the overall scope, because as you know, the time that you were born sets the house positions. And what I like to see in the house positions, it's like a movie set or a play where we're going to have different characters playing in different settings. And so with Prince, he has things kind of all over the quadrants, because we can divide the astrology chart into the horizon. Everything below the horizon is more on a personal level. Everything above the horizon is more on an interpersonal level, which are focusing on the external world. And then we have the right and left quadrant. So it's different from what you're going to see on the chart. So when I put the chart, you can see the chart on the right side is definitely more extroverted, focusing on other people. The left side of the chart is more of the introverted focus. And Prince is pretty balanced. There's things all over that. So there's a lot going on. So I'm going to start off with what I call the Trinity. Now, I'm a student of a woman named Connie Kaplan. She's an American mystic. And so I'm going to be sharing a lot of what I've learned from her. She had some mystical experiences, especially with the death of her father, or when his father was dying. And she kind of got these downloads with the degrees. And it's really complicated, so I don't want to get into it too much, but each degree has a significance, which actually adds more of a 5D approach to the chart. So just in general, the first from 0 to 9 degrees are focused on the archetypal world, the animal, the plant kingdom, things like that. And that's more of what she calls the ascending principles. So the principles are building into the human principles, which are 10 through 19. Those are more of the human world and our emphasis. And then from 20 to 29 is what she calls the descending principles. And those principles are more about cosmic principles. So I know it's hard to understand, but I really like what I've learned from her, because it makes the chart flesh out more. And you realize that all the signs and all the principles and all the placements, there's no better or worse. It's what you've come to do, because the blueprint is your chart. You come into this blueprint, and Prince has a lot going on, and I'm excited to jump into it because he's absolutely one of my favorites. So I'm going to start with the Trinity, which is what Connie feels is the primary emphasis. So the Trinity is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your midheaven. Now that's a little different than a lot of other astrologers see it. They usually include the rising sign, but we're going to talk about that a bit later, because the rising sign comes to more of your personality, what you're bringing in with your personality, ego in the good sense of, your container. But your cosmic principles, what you came here to do, is in the sun, moon, and midheaven. So his sun is at 16 degrees Gemini. And let me find the house position here. His house position is in the 8th house. So it's just barely in the 8th house. So let's talk about Gemini. Gemini is mutable air. So Geminis are busy people. Their mind is super active. They're very sociable. It is mutable air. So super brainiac, always thinking, lots of variety. I'm a Gemini, I have a lot of Gemini, so I totally relate to him, but my placement is a little bit different in the house position. His house position is in the 8th house. And the 8th house corresponds to Scorpio. It's what I call the secret power. Scorpio and the 8th house is all about mystery, hidden things, sex, things that we all share, and all the hidden mysteries of the occult and hidden knowledge, and it also deals with other people's money. But safe to say, Prince was always interested in those subjects in his music, and very passionate, very strong. And Gemini is, like I said, mutable air, so it tends to be a little bit maybe flighty, but in that 8th house, it is not a flighty place. 8th house is strong and it's powerful. It's like a deep lake. It corresponds to Pluto and Scorpio, so there's a lot of hidden depth there. And Prince is always focused on that, the depth, the sex, and just what connects us to the hidden worlds. So you can see that in his music and his passion. And throughout his life, he was always digging deeper into religious beliefs and mysteries. So you can see that. Now I'm going to talk about the degree 16. 16 degrees corresponds to what we call unity. And unity, 16 degrees shows up quite a bit in Prince's chart. And unity is the consciousness of we're all one. It is one of the human principles, and it's the understanding of we're all one. The whole world is one. The unity of man, the unity of our earth, and it corresponds to, those principles that are just uniting us all. And that's another thing, is Prince was always a uniter. He was pioneer with his bands and using different people and just bringing people together. So unity is very powerful for him, and that's kind of his primary gift. So the sun is what you came here to do. You're here to show and create unity, and Prince was all about that. Now let's go move to the moon sign. The moon sign for Prince is Pisces, believe it or not. Totally different, but it's also a mutable sign. It's mutable water. So Pisces are known to be very mystical. In fact, Pisces moon tends to be very psychic, because Pisces is the sign of the fish floating in the water. And Pisces also corresponds to going back to the one. It's again merging and unity. So it's almost, there's a connection there, because his sun sign is in unity, but the moon is in Pisces. And Pisces is also the fish in the sea, corresponds to the 12th house going back and merging to the one. So people that have Pisces moon typically are very psychic, no matter where the placement is, because they understand. Now the moon sign is different than the sun sign. The moon sign corresponds to what you've done before. And so the moon sign is your mastery. You've had many lifetimes building that skill set, unlike the sun sign where you're actually moving towards your sun sign. The moon is more reflective. And so a lot of times people kind of think, oh, that's nothing. They forget about the moon. And the moon is where you nurture yourself, where you comfort yourself, and where your mastery is. So with Pisces, I get a sense of, a priest. That's what I see in his chart. He's not like a Catholic priest, but a prophet, and very much aware of spirituality, this deep spirituality that he carried that was kind of underneath all the other things. And that's the thing about Prince. He was always talking about, lots of sexuality, but combined with spirituality. And I remember when I first discovered him, I thought, this is really opposite. These are like totally different things, but to him, they were connected. He always sensed that inner connection. So let me look at his moon sign. His moon is actually, again, kind of right on the cusp here between the 4th house and the 3rd house. So let me just check it for reals here. Yes, where is that moon? I'm trying to read my own handwriting. Yes, so he is actually in the 4th house. So his moon is in the 4th house, and it is in this degree. It's actually 1 degree 58 minutes. And so I'm going to push that to degree 2. So the 2nd degree is in the ascending principles, and it's called purity. Now, not pure, Prince was like purity, and Prince doesn't make any sense, but the principle of purity is understanding the archetypal realms. And that's another theme with Prince. He was very in tune with the archetypal realms and the symbols. And, he was all about symbols. And understanding things in a symbolic way, or the geometries. So there's a lot of depth. He was born with a lot of depth and a lot of spiritual information. And then it was in the 4th house. Now, the 4th house is the house of the mother and the home and feeling safe. So it looks like that he has felt comfortable at home, his home life. Now, I know his home life initially was very chaotic. He lived with a friend, his parents separated, but there was some sort of mystical experience that, ties him to his home and feeling comfortable. And so having the moon in the 4th house has some connections with the mother. The mother has a strong influence in the home and wanting his home life to feel nurturing, being nurtured at home and creating a home life that is very comfortable for him. So yeah, that mystical experience in the moon was very much a driving force. And as he grew up and created his own home life, having that mystical, creative. Pisces is also very creative, artistic, sensitive, and creating a home that supported all of that. Okay, so now we're going to go into the midheaven. So the midheaven is right where the chart moves from the 9th to the 10th house. And typically we think of the midheaven is the career house, getting into the career. But what Connie calls the midheaven is your return to God. And so it's basically part of your soul group. So the degree on that midheaven is where your soul group is working. So it's very deep. It's where you return at night. You kind of plug into your soul group. And Prince's midheaven is 29 degrees Leo. And I also have my midheaven on the 29th degree. So I guess there's a connection there because the 29th degree is the last degree in the 30 degrees. So the midheaven at 29 degrees, 29 represents movement, because what happens is it's moving you to the next place. And then the next degree is 0. So 0 is like placement. It's going to place you on the ground. It's like you're going to be spun around and boom, placement. 29 degrees is spinning you around to the next level. So Prince's whole life was pushing people into new ideas. In fact, his whole career was about changing. He was always changing, always moving, always growing, always moving to the next level. And that's what his music encouraged people to do too. Yes, it was fun. Little Red Corvette was fun. But I find deep spirituality in his music that is transformative. And so that transformative level of the 29 degrees, pushing, not even pushing, but moving, moving that energy along is exactly what he was doing in his music and his life. So that's his trinity. There's a lot going on there. So now I'm going to move into what we call the personal pillars. We call those the inner planets. Those are the ones that have most influence on our personality and how we express ourselves. So we're going to move into the personal pillars. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about, and this is how Connie likes to look at it, is we're going to talk about Mars. So Mars is your physical body. So sometimes people think of Mars as male and Venus is female, but I think think about astrology. It's been around for a long time, and a lot of our earthly influence has kind of brought it down versus the spirituality. So this is why I think it actually more spiritualizes the chart. So looking at his Mars, his body, how he has energy, how he goes after things, how you drive, his Mars is in Aries. And it's at 0 degrees, which is really interesting because Prince has a lot of 29 degrees and he also has 0. So he is here to push and move us to a higher vibrational level. That's really partly why he was here, to really, I think of him almost like John the Baptist or the prophets in the Bible. He's like, hey, listen to this. We're preparing for something here. We're preparing for this new world. And there's a lot of that in his chart, that he was a wayshower. He was a forerunner to the Aquarian age, basically. So Mars is in Aries, and it's at 0 degrees. and it's in Aries. Now, Aries is like really powerful. In fact, Mars and Aries is in its, that's the perfect place for Mars, because Mars is taking action. Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, and it pushes forward. It corresponds to spring, and Mars is related to Aries. I can't remember the right term for it at the moment, but it's glorified. It's basically in this powerful place. So Mars in Aries is supercharged Mars. So Prince, and then Aries is cardinal fire. Now cardinal takes action. So Prince was never shy about doing what he wanted. He's going to do it no matter what. No matter what. So there's tremendous drive for people to have Mars in Aries. My husband has Mars in Aries too, but it's a different principle. And so they just push ahead no matter what. Sometimes they push so far that they go, oopsie, bang my head, I'm gonna get in trouble. But that's the drive. The drive is so intense. And yeah, it's super sexy too, because they're just gonna go after what they want. They're gonna see it and they're gonna go for it. So it looks like Prince has his Mars right on the edge of the 4th house. Now, it really depends on the chart wheel. So there aren't lines in the sky, as I like to say. So it's kind of on the cusp between 4th and the 5th house. So Mars in the 4th house would signify a lot of drama growing up. Now that makes sense. What I heard about his early childhood, his parents divorced, there's probably a lot of drama. He lived with his mom for a while, and then he moved in to a friend that was one of his first bandmates. So there's lots of stuff there. But safe to say, Prince basically had a very strong survival instinct, and he wouldn't be afraid to make changes to make himself get to a better place. So that Mars in Aries is extremely determined. And again, it's in 0. So 0 is I'm here. So he's very grounded. Wherever he was, he's going to commit to it. He's going to commit to that grounded place. And again, so you have Moon and Aries. Those are like really different planetary energies there. So that nurturing side in Pisces and that strength of Aries just being there. But that was Prince. He was a man of many contrasts. And so it's just like you're making food, there's a bunch of different things that are going to be put in there. So with Mars, it corresponds with a lot of work ethic and going forward, his physicality, his strength. It's going to be a place where he can feel comfortable being, I don't want to say aggressive, but assertive. He's a very assertive guy. A very manly man. I've heard many people say, even though Prince liked to kind of play around with, makeup and high heels, people say he's a macho man. He was a macho guy. And I think when he wanted somebody, he went after it. And that includes women and lovers, but also bandmates. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he was super solid and grounded. So that's his Mars. So now we're going to go into the Venus principle. And the Venus is the emotional side, how he experiences his emotional body. So we have the physical body, and then we have the emotional body. And so it's how to tune in with that. So his Venus is actually in a totally different place. His Venus is at 7 degrees Taurus, and it is in the 6th house, which is very interesting. So the 6th house is the house of service, work, and health. So the people that have planets in the 6th house tend to be very devoted to working. And I don't mean like working like going to work. It's about being organized. So they're kind of could be workaholics. Interestingly enough, when I did the same reading for Michael Jackson, he had a lot of planets in the 6th house too. So the 6th house corresponds to Virgo. And Virgo is mutable earth. So the 6th house corresponds to your health, your work ethics, not really so much career, but day-to-day organization. And so with Venus there, that means that he is very devoted, but also it has to be beautiful. He loves beauty and the arts, especially in Taurus. Taurus is fixed earth. So Taurus is very sensual, very romantic, very loves the nice things in life. They like great food, they want luxury. So even though he works really hard, he wants this more luxurious, sensuous. Sensuous is a great word because Prince's music is always about sensuality and textures and flow. And sometimes we look at where we find our lovers or our partners in Venus. So it tells me that Prince usually, his partners were people that he worked with. So most of the people, I can't remember the names, but they were workmates. Those were the people that he found to be partners with. And again, it is in the degree of 7. Now 7 corresponds to the animal spirits, the animal divas, the over archetypes of animals, and it responds to generosity. So that's what that is. So Venus at 7 degrees is very generous and very loving and wants to share. And so what we've heard about Prince is that he was always sharing with people, very generous to the people that he worked with, treated them very fairly, until they moved on. But he was always hosting. I know that before he passed away, he would host concerts at his house and he would allow people to come in, and he was always giving. In fact, after he passed, we found out how much he was giving without credit. Like he sponsored a lot of philanthropic, but you know what I'm saying. He was very giving. And sometimes with his giving, he didn't even want credit. He just wanted to help people. So that's that Venus principle, that emotional body of giving and generosity and working hard in that 6th house. And that's where those are the people that he wanted to work with, people that had the work ethic that he did. And to be honest, it was probably hard to find the people that had that kind of work ethic because he worked so hard and was such a perfectionist in his world. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Mercury principle. And the Mercury principle is the mental mind. So we have the physical body, we have the emotional body, and now we're talking about the mental body. Now the mental body is how you think, how you process, what kinds of things you're interested in talking and speaking about. So Prince's Mercury is again in Gemini. Yay! Yeah, I have Sun in Gemini and also my Mercury in Gemini. Different principles though, different placements. So his Mercury was in 4 degrees Gemini, and his Mercury principle is firmly in the 7th house. And the 7th house is the house of partnerships. It's about, it could be marriage. It also could be people that you're working with in a very committed relationship on a business level as well. So it looks like Prince was very good at persuading people to work with, and he wanted to work with people that were smart, that were on the same wavelength. And let's look at the principle. Yes, it's at 4 degrees Gemini. And so I'm sure he was very persuasive. Having Mercury in the 7th house means that you have kind of like a silver tongue, not in a bad way, but you're very persuasive. You have great communication skills. In fact, Mercury is also coordinated with Gemini, because Mercury and Gemini kind of also go together as well. They're very, very quicksilver. They're very smooth talker, smooth salesman, you could say, or just knows a lot. And Gemini, as a Gemini Mercury myself, there's so many interests. And see, that's the thing about Prince. He was interested in so many things that showed in his music. He was funny. He liked spirituality. He was very sensual. And those skills helped him grow his career because it's very easy to talk with people and bring them on board with him. He's had so many different bands and so many different projects. So his gift of language has been very effective, building relationships in that 7th house. Very powerful. So now I'm going to talk about the principle. The principle for his Mercury is 4. Now, 4 degrees represents the stone people. So it's in the archetypal realm, and the stones have memory and they have energy. So that's another solid side. Even though Prince was a Gemini, there was a lot of solidity and strength in him. And the stones have records. So when you look at some of the Native American and pre-Christian beliefs, everything is sacred. Everyone is alive, and that includes the stones. The stones hold the records of the earth. So again, Prince is once again in this archetypal realm that he felt very comfortable in. And again, a sense of strength and solidity and able to work with people. And it also suggests, so sometimes the 7th house also suggests your partner in life or who you're going to marry or the people you're going to work with. So it suggests that he needs to work with people that are sharp. They're smart. No dullards for him. They have to have an intellectual commitment. And the people that he wants to date or work with are his intellectual equals. They have to be very intelligent and good speakers, and that's really important for him. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the last principle that is part of the personal pillars, which is your personality and how you present, is the rising sign. Now, the rising sign sets up the whole chart wheel, but the rising sign typically shows your personality, it shows how you look. But what Connie suggests is it's your ethical foundation. It's how you view the world. It's your filter of what you're doing, and it reflects your face, it reflects how you move in life. And so his ascendant is in Scorpio. No surprise there. And it is also 16 degrees, which I think is very interesting. Both of his rising sign and his sun sign is 16 degrees. So that tells me that his soul was very conscious of bringing in this unity consciousness, which is where we're all moving to. That's why I think of Prince is like John the Baptist or a prophet that was prophesizing the new changes that are coming, because his music was full of that. It was full of these archetypal images, definitely with the sexuality and that 8th house, interest and bringing things out of the depth. But the whole point is to bring unity. Now, again, it's interesting how I said his sun sign was in the 8th house. Yes. And so, which has a scorpionic sense to it in the 8th house. And then his rising sign is in Scorpio. So I think that's really interesting how it correlates. And his rising sign was also 16 degrees, unity consciousness. And Scorpio is fixed water. So even though Prince could jump around the stage, but when you see him in interviews, he's pretty solid. He's pretty quiet. I always make jokes about reality TV show that Prince would never have made it on reality TV because he just wouldn't play along. Scorpios are stubborn. They're fixed. Anything that is fixed is that they're not gonna budge. They're gonna hold their ground no matter what. And again, Scorpio is all about those mysteries. It's all about those secret things. Also has correlation to sexuality, finances, hidden things, the occult. He was very fascinated with that throughout his career. And so I think it's really interesting, but for unity of all of our planet Earth. And that includes all, not just humans, but all the creatures of the earth, which include the earth spirits and all of that. Okay, I'm getting woo, but that's where he was. So he was holding this vibration for all of us. He came here for this. Okay, so now I'm going to move into what we call the universal principles. And the universal principles are the outlaying planets, and they have more of a effect on generations, but they do affect us in certain ways. And I'm going to share it with Connie's system as well. And so we're going to start. And so what she likes to think of the universal principles is as you are being born. And so it's a little bit removed. And the principles kind of come to play through your birth journey, which affects us throughout life. So the first principle I'm going to look at is going to be Neptune. Now, Neptune is the planet of mysticism. And so in Connie's system, Neptune is part of what we call her birth group. So the people that are born, because these planets go really slowly, and so when you're in the womb, the birth group that has the same sign and degree as you is your birth group. And your birth group has come to hold this vibration to help heal the earth. And so for Prince, his Neptune is in Scorpio, and it's 2 degrees Scorpio. And yeah, that Scorpio generation. So, Scorpio was lots of years, people were holding that Scorpio. So it's the second Scorpio. Again, it's fixed water. And his his Neptune is in, let me look here. Oh gosh, yeah. It's in the 12th house, which is a double meaning because Neptune corresponds with Pisces and the sea. And the 12th house is that house that's going back to the one. So the first house is new, like the new soul is birthed out, unique. 12th house is this wisdom that we're all one. Another sign of unity consciousness and understanding that we all are children of God. We are all part of God and we're going back to that unity. So Neptune there means he was a mystic. He has this mystical sense throughout his life that this is what we're here to do. We're going to shift things. And his Scorpio is strong. And it's in the sign of, again, purity. So that's the second purity that we have. The other purity was the moon. And purity doesn't mean that he's a virgin or anything, or he's super pure, but he gets it. He gets the archetypal realms. He gets that. It's natural for him. So I'm thinking a lot of his music suggests that he had a lot of spiritual and psychic experiences throughout his life. He may not have talked about them. There's little blips of it in his music, and he was so prolific. I don't even have all his albums. So much stuff coming out of him, which is very Mercury. It's very much Gemini, but that mysticism, holding that mysticism in that place was very powerful for him. It was kind of like an undercurrent. That's kind of what Neptune is. It's that undercurrent. And so he probably needed a lot of time alone to process, because people that have planets in the 12th house need that quiet time so they can bring it in. So that's very, very interesting. So the next thing we're going to look at is the Saturn principle. And the Saturn principle is considered the house of karma, your karma, what you're here to persevere for. But what I like about what Connie says is she thinks that Saturn represents how you see time. Because really, time is an illusion. But Saturn shows us how we approach time. So his Saturn is, let me look here, I've got my notes. He is 22 degrees Sagittarius. So totally different, but it's another mutable sign. Sagittarius is mutable fire. So I think of Sagittarius as like the prophet. He's sharing things out, the fire and brimstone, and sharing all this information. And his Saturn is there. And his Saturn is at 22 degrees. Now, interesting enough, maybe I love Prince so much because we have a lot of similarities, is I also have my Saturn in 22 degrees, except mine's in Aquarius. And so 22 degrees is the sign of dreaming. And this is a cosmic principle. And the cosmic principle is basically the people that have dreaming, 22 degrees, are dreaming the new world. They are in touch with the earth, and it's it's hard even to explain, because I have that too, in that the world isn't clearly as physical for people with 22 degrees in Saturn, because Saturn is this worldview, and we're supposed to age and do all these things, which I kind of don't believe either. So I think that youthfulness that he kept throughout his life is that the world isn't really real. There's a sense that that the world is spiritually based, and the spiritual reality is what brings up the physical reality, and that we have the ability to dream a new dream. And again, that's what his whole career was about, is creating this unity consciousness with the dream, and using the dream to pull things out of the other, and that we have the power to dream a new future. It's very, very powerful. Now his Sagittarius, let's look at his Saturn is in the second house. So the second house is the house of the physicality. It's about building businesses. It's about your physical body and your home. So for him, I just only imagine his early childhood was so chaotic, living at different places, but he had that vision, he had a dream, and he manifested that dream. And that discipline of building that Saturn in that second house, but he did it in a way that he dreamt it and then he manifested. Now mine's in the fifth house, it's a different place. So that's why just because you have the same sign as somebody, you don't always have the same degrees and you don't always have the same placement, which is what is so amazing about astrology. Yes, and so he worked very hard to build what he did. But I bet he had that dream as a young person and he just took the time, because remember, Saturn is a timekeeper, to build what he created. And he created so much wealth, so much records. They don't even have all the recordings out. He was so prolific. So yeah, and very passionate about that, because that's another passionate fire sign that's mutable. All right, so next we are going to go to Pluto. So Pluto is the sign of death and rebirth. It's how we transform ourselves, how we deal with depression, how we reinvent ourselves. And what Connie says is the Neptune is the birth group, and then Saturn is you're waiting to be born, again, the time. And Pluto is like right before you come out. It's like, okay, I got to get out of here. You know, it's a birth and re-death. You know, you're transforming. And so his Pluto is in, again, okay, so this is another one we're going to switch over. It's 29 degrees, but it's 57 seconds. So we're going to push that to 0 again. Now, what's interesting is his Pluto is conjunct with his midheaven. So Pluto is a very, very powerful planet for Prince, because it's all about death and rebirth, transformation, because death and rebirth can be all kinds of things. Again, sexuality is combined with that Plutonian energy, because it is kind of death and rebirth in some ways, and also spiritually, constant renewal. So that was really merged with his career, because again, that midheaven, you know, it is going back to God and what you've come here to like really live, but it's also some traits about his career. So I'm just going to double check on this. Yes. So his 10th house has Pluto in it, and Pluto is powerful. It can be powerfully destructive as well as powerful. Plutonian energy, you know, it's just super intense, and it's totally tied to his midheaven. So what's interesting is that he has his midheaven in 29 degrees, which is movement, and then that Pluto is right on the other side, placement. That's what it's called. I call it standing, because like, boom, I'm standing here, but it's placement. It's super strong. So that Pluto and that movement are united. They're working together to shift. And that's exactly what he did. His music was so powerful and so shifting. Yeah, I can't even say the right words, because it is just monstrously powerful. And that's what he came here to do. I see him as a prophet of the unity that's coming. And I think he knew that too. And unfortunately, his life ended sooner than we hoped, but his legacy moves forward. And again, it's strong. There's a strength there. So even though he's a Gemini, see, this is why sun sign astrology doesn't always work, because there's way more going on. There's a lot of strength in his chart for a Gemini. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Uranus. Now, Uranus is, you know, instant inspiration, comes to you like lightning bolt. And so Connie looks at that as when you're birthed, you come out of the womb and boom, this is what you see. This is what you get. So his Uranus is at 8 degrees Leo. Now, 8 degrees corresponds to the animals, the animal kingdom, and it's called goodness. And so it's very much kindness and goodness. There's a goodness to his heart. And so Uranus isn't something that influences us like in our personal profile. It's not personal, but it just every once in a while you get this like inspiration and you see the goodness in the world, at least in his chart. And it's Leo again. So Leo is the showman. It's fixed. It's fixed fire. So that fixed fire is powerful. It's also very fixed. So Prince, as much of a Gemini and much of his mutable planets, had a lot of fixed energy. And that's kind of what you need to build a career, to go from here to there, is you're going to work hard with that fixed energy. And he also had, of course, Leo at the midheaven, also was fixed. So there's a lot of fixed energy in his chart in different ways. So let's look at where the Uranus is. And the Uranus is in, let me find it. Okay, Uranus is in the 9th house. Now the 9th house is the house of what, like philosophy and religion and traveling. So it looks like when he was felt this inspiration, he gets this goodness of traveling, and he loved religion and philosophy. And so it's just like this way to inspire. So he was inspired by that. And I think, again, he brought that into his music. I think everything in his chart came in to what he was sharing as a musician. So this is inspiration of this Leo energy that he can share, because the Leo is the sign of the sun, sharing with others, and that goodness. The sun shines on everybody. And so when he had that flash of inspiration, he's going to get that sense of that Leo energy in the 9th house, the inspiration of philosophy and religion. And I know that he studied religion his whole life, and I think I heard that he became a Seventh-day Adventist. I think I'm correct on that. So he was always drawn to religious studies and understanding the world through how we see the world. Okay, so the last one we're going to do is Jupiter. So Jupiter is one of those houses. It's kind of on the edge between the personal planets and the rest of them. So Jupiter, Connie says, is the one that's like a job well done. Jupiter is the one that's going to merge everything. Now, traditionally, Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system, and it's the planet of benevolence, where good things happen to you, where you're going to have a sense of flow in your life. Now, his Jupiter is in the sign of Libra, and it's at 21 degrees, 56 minutes. And again, I'm going to shift that right over to 22, which is in dreaming. So his Jupiter is in dreaming, like his Saturn is in dreaming. So he is dreaming the Earth's new dream. And I'm going to look at the house position, making sure, yes. Okay. So this is very interesting too. His Jupiter, which is in dreaming, in Libra, and Libra is cardinal air, which is building relationships, is in the 11th house. And you know what the 11th house is? It's the house of the Aquarian age. It's the house that is building us to unity. It also points back to unity. So it's so interesting that his Jupiter is in the 11th house, because the 11th house is the house of the Aquarian age, which is kind of hard for us to understand because we're not there now. We are not there. We're actually at a psychic war right now on this planet. Right now, the day that it is October 21st. So we're not there. But he had that vision. His Jupiter was to create benevolence in creating this world. That's what he was doing. His whole music and career was about that. So again, it points to unity, and it points to building this Aquarian age and building a human reality where we're all together. We're all here uplifted in a spiritual vibration. So very spiritual, very much a forerunner to what's going to be happening here soon. Okay, so I'm going to cover 2 more little issues on his chart. We're going to talk a bit about the North Node and the South Node. So the North Node points to where you're going to succeed, and the South Node is where you've been. So his North Node is, I'm going to check this again, it's in the 12th house again. So the North Node is in Libra. It's also in 29 degrees, so that's another movement. And so that says that, again, he needed a lot of time alone to meditate, to feel the energy. And so what happens when the North Node points to where you're going to be successful and where you're growing. The South Node points to where you've been, and it's a little bit tiring to hang out there. So with the North Node in the 12th house, that puts the South Node in the 6th house. So it looks like he would have to watch out for not being too much of a workaholic and to allow himself lots of alone time to pull in his inspiration and his spirituality. So that's what his principles are. And again, it was through movement. He came here to move and push, and not even push. It's not even needed. The push isn't there. It's about allowing the flow to move into the next place, the placement. So movement goes to placement. And he had both in his chart. And then the very last thing I'm going to talk about is Chiron. And Chiron is the wounded healer. And the wounded healer represents where you've suffered and where you're going to heal yourself, and then you're going to share it with others. So his wounded healer is in, let me see, it is in the 3rd house. And his wounded healer is an Aquarius. And again, it's 22 degrees. It's in the sign, 22 degrees. So it's another dreaming, to dream a new dream, dream a new world. And it's in Aquarius, which is fixed air. And it was in the 3rd house. So that tells me that growing up, he felt like he had to work hard to express himself. The 3rd house is all about your communication and your mental processes and sometimes siblings. And so it looks like it was a bit angsty to begin with. Maybe he felt like he didn't have a voice very early on, but he recovered that by dreaming, that dreaming principle that I'm going to create a new dream. And the new dream is I'm going to communicate what I feel. So from his career on, he was never shy to bring out his thoughts and feelings through his music. You know, normally Prince was pretty tight-lipped in a lot of interviews, but his music brought it out. And even with his guitar playing, you can feel that emotion, that energy of sharing what he thought, his thoughts and beliefs and ideas, and communicating what he needed to do. I've seen a lot of celebrities have planets in that 3rd house because they're sharing what they're doing. So, all right, that's it. That's Prince's chart. And I just find it so fascinating how there's so many themes regarding dreaming, spirituality, unity consciousness. So that's why I think Prince is the prophet of the Aquarian age. All right, hope you like this, and I look forward to doing more readings for you soon. And I'll let you know that if you want your own reading, send me an email. I have links below, and I can give you a reading just like I did here today. All right, take care. See you next time. Bye.